Hi there. Welcome to the From Lab to Launch podcast by Qualio, where we share inspiring stories from the people on the front lines of life sciences. Tune in and leave inspired to bring your life-saving products to the world. Now let's get started with Robert, Qualio founder and CEO, and our show host.
Hi, everyone. I'm delighted to have you join us for today's conversation with Joan Melendez, CEO of Xcelrate UDI. Did you know about $6 billion is spent each year in medical device recall management? Having a product recalled is probably a medical device company's worst nightmare. But once something gets recalled, the communication between the FDA and manufacturers and healthcare facilities all involved in the workflow of that product often break down or are slow to respond. This results in patients becoming highly at risk. To solve this, Joan created Xcelrate UDI with a goal to improve patient safety at the point of care by leveraging the power of the unique device identification system for medical devices and biological tissues. Xcelrate UDI uses innovative barcode scanning technology to capture the data required by the FDA and digitally document the patient health record with precision and accuracy. Joan has over 25 years building and optimizing healthcare applications, specializing in perioperative anesthesia and trauma workflows. She shares some great insights with us today about starting a company with a big mission. And with an 800% increase in recalls in recent years, a byproduct of companies increasingly moving faster in this space over time, there has never been a more important time than now to focus on quality and alerting and patient safety. I hope you enjoyed this one. I'd love to learn, Joan, about the work you're doing with Xcelrate, and from there, I have a ton of questions about how you got here, lessons learned, some challenges, some interesting things that happened along the path. I think the journey of people who are, start companies, lead companies, grow companies, build companies, it often looks hard to understand how do you get there and what is it like to do that. So I appreciate you sharing some of your story with us today.
Of course, my pleasure.
Maybe to kick off, tell us a bit about Xcelrate and your product like Xcelrate UDI.
Yeah, well, again, thanks so much for having me on your show. Xcelrate UDI, we're actually a minority and women certified business, which is really exciting. Thanks to Debbie, our assistant. She did a lot of work on certification. Awesome. And we specialize in safety, patient safety, surrounding medical device and biologic usage. And how we do that is we sit on top of any of the electronic health records, and we scan the manufacturer's barcode on the medical device and validate the, whether it's recalled, if it's been reported correctly to the FDA. So we do a lot of analytics just with that little scan that actually prevents the use of unsafe items.
How do you solve that problem? How do you get that unified identifier? And for context, maybe kick off with, can you explain to people some of the stats or the detail about the fragmentation? And as somebody who's worked in drug development, I get it. But for those of you people who aren't, and devices in particular, maybe tell us a bit about the supply chain and its complexity.
Yeah, so I think that people are starting to understand the complexity of medical device management just because of the vaccine insanity that's happening right now, right? So really, when you're looking at medical device, the supply chain, how do you know when it's shipped? You have your supply chain department who's in charge of that piece. Then you have your operating room who's in charge of other pieces. So there's really not that communication of the product. People think, well, why isn't it like Walmart? It's just not. The systems haven't been in place. Yeah. And so, when you get these medical devices in, one of the things that we work with our hospital clients is that we want to make sure that we get the product in-house that has the longest shelf life, right? So if it's manufactured, date is 5 years prior to the expiration, we want that 5 years prior. We don't want something that's expiring within the next couple of weeks. So we make sure that whatever's coming into the hospital facilities, we scan the products to make sure they're not expired, recalled, or counterfeit. And then at that last moment, right when we're handing off that surgical device, an implantable device, a mesh a breast
Mm-hmm.
implant, anything like that,
Mm-hmm.
we're scanning it at the last opportunity to again validate, has this just been recalled? So today is a great example of the problem that we have in the industry with manufacturers working with the FDA, thinking they're doing the right thing and notifying the hospitals at the same time. One thing I don't think people realize is medical devices are voluntarily recalled.
Yeah.
So we can get into that piece later. But so the manufacturer sent out a recall notification to the hospitals, that it's sold to, and also notified the FDA at the same time. But the FDA hasn't updated their websites yet.
Yeah.
So what happens? It introduces that time frame where that device can be being used on a patient.
Great explanation of, I believe, why the unique device identifier, it can be a mouthful, or UDIs, which we of course like to call it, is why it's important. You also mentioned that you're talking about arriving at the facility, the healthcare facility, and right before the point of use. And you also work directly with the manufacturers. That's correct. So you kind of followed along the full spectrum. How did you do that? I want to get to your journey and some of the certifications you have. But as somebody, at Quality, we're a software company. We know our customers. And you sound like you have a lot of different stakeholders. Like, to get this product built and design it is one thing. But how did you get everybody playing ball along the way? And if they're in different incentives, and the surgery place, they're busy. And the hospital day, you're dealing with a different person, and the manufacturer is completely different as well.
Right. It's still, an ongoing challenge. And you have some manufacturers who embrace you, and you have some manufacturers who send you threatening letters. But I personally have not gotten a threatening letter, thank God. But once you tell the manufacturers what you're doing, ours is all about patient safety. The reason they have notified their clients of that recall or adverse, the buildup of adverse events, is because they want it removed. They want to make sure that they don't have products on the market as well. It's like $6 billion recall management a year. $6 billion just for the management.
Yeah.
So, that's why, it's a lot of money. And so you have the supply chain, you have the use. So where are you sending that recall notification, right? So once we work with both sides, they see the importance, because we're giving the manufacturer back real-time data. So as soon as they send that announcement, we were able to pull 4 products today. Yeah. And so what did we do? Today we prevented the use of 4 items, and these and that one has not been broadcasted. The FDA hasn't released it yet. So,
that's insane.
Yeah. So we get on the horn and we notify, like, Xcelrate, who's one of our competitors. But when we know of a recalled item, we're going to notify everybody in our industry. We're going to make sure that everybody knows that there is a device that's on the market that the manufacturer wants removed. So, they have a stake in it. And so they're very excited that we're partnering with them.
6 billion is a big number in an area that a lot of people aren't aware of. I will come back to a little bit of the costs of this today and getting it wrong and how you help get it right. But I want to talk a bit about you, right? So it's a niche area or a niche area. You could see from outside of the industry. What was your path to this?
I started this path when I was really young. I started working in a medical office when I was 11. So my mom was a nurse. So I was put in charge of the vaccines, in fact. So making sure that we had that follow through, of everything. So, and it also then went to the administration of making sure that the patients had the correct info sent to the hospital to make sure that encounter was safe. I've seen too many patients die because there were medical record informations missing between the time that they, fell and hit and hurt their hip, which is basically really an elective surgery, but they ended up having surgery and their heart condition is what killed them. So that's how I got involved. So when you're starting to look at, at the prevention from just records, I started seeing these recall events just stacking up. And the FDA opened up for innovation. Everybody knows that term novel now because we have that novel virus. So they have novel medical devices, right? So you can take a Band-Aid And you can say that, oh, now I'm using it as a medical, like a biologic that actually can repair on the bone. But they don't have to go again through the 510K process for approval. They are grandfathered in. So, and that's when you're starting to see these recalls increase. I think it's between 2016 and 2018, there was an 800% increase in recalls. So again, it's all these things that I was seeing even, years ago that they were falling through the cracks. So how could I help as a small person, to be a town crier?
Yeah, 800% is another big statistic. I'm curious, is that because of better responsiveness or more products or more problems or a combination?
It's because of that innovation. It's because there's really no accountability, in my opinion. I'm sure there are other opinions as well, but that's just statistically what I'm seeing when I'm looking at the data.
I would share just part of our hypothesis of why what we do at Qualio is important. And I won't talk about us much, but I'll talk about the theme. That's something that we monitor quite a lot, is this concept that, speed and velocity and versus quality of products in the modern world, when we're seeing this rate of innovation across like software, biology, that's really ramped up. It feels like they're opposing forces. And in order to move into velocity, these companies or products often need to, it's hard to maintain a quality standard. So I think it's no surprise you start to see more recall activity, and it's a very unfortunate tension. I think that gets created. Was there a moment when you said that, you know what, I can be part of solving this?
Yeah. When I did an analysis of a current application in 2015 for one of my healthcare clients, the nurses left the demo of how their workflow would change using their existing EHR. They left the room crying hysterically and saying that you have to do something for us. So I took that challenge on and created an application that, is really a game changer in the industry.
How did you get started from that moment? I'm curious as to, like, it doesn't sound like you have a background in technology, yet your product, I guess, utilizes some hardware and software and its whole manufacturing supply chain of its own.
Yeah, I actually do have a background in technology as well. I started off, I have my degree in management information systems.
Oh,
okay, so, so I have that medical and IT background. So it totally helps. And for me, I just have that innate ability to really look at workflows and how can I streamline and optimize a workflow that's being impeded by something. Yeah.
Where did you launch?
We launched back in UPMC in Pennsylvania. That was my first client. Awesome. So I had a big client for the first client.
Yeah, that's a big first client. That's a lot of pressure. Awesome. Yes. When was that? What year?
2015. Yeah.
2015. So from that start to 4 recalls in one day, so far it's like 11:15 a.m. here in Pacific time, where we both are. So the day is young.
I've been going since 5 o'clock this morning because I have clients to support on the East Coast time. So I apologize for that.
Yeah, no problem. What were some of the biggest lessons learned along that path?
Yeah, there were a lot of lessons learned, right? Because, we had to figure out, we looked at all the regulations. We're very science-based. So the last 4 years have been challenging because it's amazing how it affects your psyche when there's so much negativity about science. So we look at all of the FDA regulations. We make sure that we're following the regulations to the T. So looking at that, making sure that the processes are well groomed, and then working with the manufacturers. The challenge was how as a woman of one with 2 assistants, how can we really do that? So it was a challenge in the beginning, but we made it through it. The good thing is I have great friends who are really good sounding boards who helped in the trajectory of the business.
Yeah, and along that path, in addition to launching, you mentioned you focus on science. It also thinks that it looks like you focus on quality as a lot of your work.
Yes. Yes.
You got it certified for the EHR technology certification,
Right,
the
right. We're
CEHRT.
the only, exactly. We're the
Yeah.
only CEHRT certified technology company by the ONC. Uh, the other ones, the big ones, the Epics, the Cerners of the
Hmm.
world, they are certified. The certification for us, again, we took it literally. We went through step
Yeah.
1 through step 5. And if we didn't, if we wouldn't have passed on step 1, we wouldn't have gone further, where some of the EHRs actually said that they passed all those and they haven't because it's on their
Uh,
roadmap. Yeah.
yeah.
So I feel really good about, where we
Yeah.
are.
Congratulations.
Thanks. We just, because of the problem that we're having globally with COVID, our application, again, is for medical devices and biologics, right? So vaccine is a biologic. So
Yeah.
there are critical steps that you have to take, especially with the Pfizer vaccine, because you have a diluent that you have to add into it.
Hmm.
So you have the temperatures, you have the timings. There are 3 different timings. If at any part of that time, it can become expired and you have to toss it. It's no longer a
Yeah.
valid, valuable product, as with quality. So we're looking at all those quality steps along the way. So we were able to retool our application so that when, like the states, they have no idea how much they ordered, right? So
Yeah.
we could actually just grab the data from Moderna and Pfizer directly, and within our clearinghouse, we have all that data of what was purchased, what was used, what was wasted, adverse events. So we're pulling all that data
Interesting.
into one source.
So are you already working with some of the supply chain around the distribution of the COVID vaccines right now?
We're trying to break in. It's a hard,
Yeah.
we're little. So,
Yeah.
we came in between Microsoft and Salesforce for a state. So I feel
Yeah.
really good because we were
That's awesome.
Microsoft. The only reason they chose Microsoft was because, Goliath. And that's what they said.
Yeah.
You guys can do so
Yeah.
much more, but we have to go with. I'm like, well, at least we came in number 2.
You know what? It's, oftentimes the first step 1 is get on the podium, and next step, you can kind of finish first on that. That's a really awesome story.
Exactly.
I'm curious, kind of looking back, what you're solving a problem set that you mentioned, the $6 billion a year is like, I'll call it wasted, because the goal is to prevent recalls along the
Right.
way. But of course, when they happen, you want to make sure it's as quick and as efficient and as cost effective as possible to manage. And
Right.
that number empowered by an 8-fold increase in essentially in 2 years. I'm not sure what it is right now, but it's probably bigger. I
It's
mean,
much worse. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a big takeaway I'm taking from this is something that only people who are exposed to this problem set are aware of it. But it's really interesting how big within healthcare in particular, there are so many like multi-billion-dollar opportunities where as building a product and building a company, you can build a company of meaning, but you can also do something with a really positive net impact. So I think that's a takeaway for me, just another data point supporting that. I'm curious for people who are working across healthcare in particular, who are kind of hitting walls in what they're doing, and like, this shouldn't be this way, or I have this fix I do that I do with me and my team and my part of a hospital or something. Any advice for people who kind of have those problems and feel they could solve it but are unsure about how to get started
Yeah.
based on
Just
your
reach out
experience?
to,
Yeah.
reach out. Yeah. I mean, I love it when people
Mm-hmm.
contact me and say, hey, I have this idea. What do you think? And, you have to have mentors. That's the only way you
Yeah.
get anywhere in life, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big researcher. I've researched everything there is to know about the vaccines, for example. So, and
Yeah.
the throughput. So we really know about that good chain of custody, as we call it.
Uh-huh.
So, anything, even, how to get better acceptance from, some of the more challenged or underserved communities, right? So if you have a great idea of how you can increase that, there's a lot of things you can do with research and leaning on people and building better communities.
Yeah. And we covered some of the downsides of some of the speed, right, with the increases in recalls. But the positive for that is it does create space and opportunity for people to try new things, right, and build new products and solve things that maybe it might not move the bottom line for Pfizer right now, but maybe it's still a really important thing to do. So
Right.
we see that as part of the other side of that scale. So I think that's excited. Looking forward, Joan, big year for you, it sounds like recently.
Big year.
Coming up against some heavyweights and getting close to a few things. I think it sounds like the future is positive. But if you were to take a step back and kind of look really far forward, 5-10 years, or whatever time frame you think about, I mean, where do you think your company could be in 5-10 years from now?
I really think that our company is going to be the clearinghouse for adverse events and recalls. If you look at our UDI clearinghouse platform, it really encompasses everything. We have it built so that a manufacturer can go view any reports back from a hospital. A hospital is, they don't like to share a lot of the information, and we're not sharing it across to all manufacturers. So when, a manufacturer comes in, they see the data that their hospital is being used and everything. So I really feel like, we can be part of that strength, because if you look at the FDA, right now there are 15 plus recall databases across the 3 divisions that we deal with. So that's a lot of places that people have to go look for a recall event.
Yeah.
And they're not in sync. We just looked the last update for the FDA's main source, which is where most manufacturers and third-party providers get the information. The last time it was updated was the 10th. So that's January? 17 days, yes. Yeah. 17 days still of data that's missing. Yeah. And we have it since yesterday.
Yeah. I love how you just describe that vision for the future, Joan. I'm really excited for you folks. I'm happier again that we've got a chance to connect, and looking forward to staying in touch along your journey in the future. Is there anything else you'd like to share? Or I think we got some interesting notes to add to the show notes and a couple of interesting links.
No, I really appreciate the opportunity, and everybody please stay safe. We do have a vaccine that is safe. Again, it depends on the timings. So, we need to make sure that, people are informed from the time that it's taken out of the freezer to when it is actually put in your arm, so that that it's safe. We want to hit that 94% that were shown, in the trials. And the only reason that it was shown is they followed very strict protocols. So, be safe, be aware, and always ask for help.
Yeah. Joan, thank you very much. Appreciate you joining today.
Thank you so much for your time.
Stay safe and keep in touch. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Definitely. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of From Lab to Launch, brought to you by Qualio. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe and give the show a positive review. It really helps us out. For more information about Qualio, our guest today, or to be a guest on a future episode, please refer to the show notes. Until next time.